Hello and welcome to Political Pulse Polling. My name is Dodge Landisman, and today from Emerson College, we welcome Isabel Holloway and Tayan Kulos. So Kansas is the focus for this week's poll. Where is Kansas politically, and where has its political leanings been in the past?
Well, it's interesting because Kansas is a traditionally red state. It went for Trump by 20 points in 2016, and all of the current federal representation is comprised of Republicans. But in our poll, we found that there are not one, not two, but three competitive races for the Democrats in Kansas. So it could potentially be trending blue.
To start off, we have President Trump's approval rating in Kansas. How is the president doing in the state?
So Trump currently has a 55% approval rating in the state, so he's definitely still more approved than disapproved in the state. But it's interesting because his chosen candidate for the governor's race, Republican Chris Kobach, has a negative approval rating. He has only 37% in the state which are approving of him. So the Republicans in the state are clearly a little bit fractured.
Do you think Trump's popularity in Kansas is similar to other states in the Midwest?
I do. I think that from what we found in our poll, that Trump does have a steady approval rating, and I think that his help with Chris Kobach will actually help him out in the general.
Interesting. And they also polled voters in Kansas about the governor's race, which is quite competitive between Chris Kobach and Democrat Laura Kelly. What do you guys find? It seems like it's actually a surprisingly close race.
It really is. So we found that Chris Kobach is up 37%, but he's only a point up from Laura Kelly, who has 36%. It's really interesting. Voters are undecided 15%, however, which isn't too bad, but it looks like it is a competitive race. Now, if Kobach wants to win, he should be up a couple more points, be comfortable. But right now, he does have kind of an interesting lead. But who knows?
Kobach was actually the only Republican that defeated the incumbent governor in the primary for this race. He defeated Governor Jeff Colyer in the primary. It was very close. It was only a couple hundred votes actually between the two.
Right, and he replaced after Brownback moved on to the White House. Right?
Yes.
So he was never officially elected, but yes, he was the incumbent, the establishment favorite.
Yeah, but Trump has had his hand on the race from the get-go. He endorsed Kobach right before the primary, so it's clear that Kobach is his guy and who he wants.
Might not have been the right guy, but
yeah, but it's also interesting because there's this third-party candidate running in this governor's race, businessman Greg Orman, who we've seen before. He actually ran in 2014 as an independent in Kansas's Senate race. So it's interesting to see if Greg Orman can get the same sort of support that he did in 2014. Right now, we only have him polling at about 9%, so it doesn't look like he's made that cutoff yet. But among independents, he is siphoning off 15% of that vote, which is a critical vote for Kelly and Kobach that they both should be targeting if they want to win.
Right. And it's interesting, too, because you also look at the national ramifications. Do you think President Trump himself has affected the race in any way? We know that, obviously, he endorsed Kobach. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually has an effect there.
Yeah, President Trump is actually visiting the state this weekend on Saturday to stump for both Kobach and Steve Watkins, who is running in the state's 2nd congressional district as a Republican. So it'll be interesting to see how the coverage sort of goes after that, if the Democrats choose to tie those candidates even more to Trump after Trump makes that visit.
Where do you think the undecided voters might go? Especially, as you mentioned, because Greg Orman, who's the independent, is polling relatively better than other third-party candidates normally when looking at these polls.
Well, it's interesting because anytime there's a third-party candidate, it gives voters an easy option if they don't want to vote for the traditional Republican or Democratic candidate. So we may see more of these undecided voters just deciding to throw a vote in there for Orman, but we also see that voters traditionally do come home to their party. So registered Republicans will probably end up voting for Kobach, and registered Democrats will probably end up voting for
The cows will
Kelly.
come home eventually.
Yeah.
Interesting. You also looked at the congressional elections in each of the 4 districts of Kansas. Which races do you think stands out the most?
So we looked at, like you said, all of them, but we found that the 2nd and 3rd were the most competitive. The Democratic candidates each hold a 4-point lead, according to our poll, but I think it was the 2nd district. The 2nd district has a 28% undecided voter rate. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, which is pretty close to the amount of voters that said they're going to vote for
Yeah.
Republican in the race.
Right.
So we have Paul Davis, who formerly ran for governor of Kansas again in 2014. He's up 4 against Republican Steve Watkins.
Right.
And that was a pretty divisive primary on the Republican side. So that could be an explanation for why we're seeing this 28% of voters being undecided, but we'll see.
It's a huge percentage.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
And in the 3rd
yeah.
district, we also found that race to be incredibly competitive for the Democrats. Candidate Sharice Davids, she's a Democrat. She is up 6 against incumbent Congressman Republican Kevin Yoder.
Right, and that's interesting when that's in suburban Kansas
Yeah.
City, and there's a lot
Right.
of
Yeah.
dynamics. And based on all of these polls, do either of you have any predictions as to where the state will go come November?
Well, honestly, what we see from this poll is that it's competitive, and the Democrats are competing in these states that we thought of as traditionally red in the past. So we should definitely be looking, like you said, at these more suburban districts, also like the 2nd and 3rd district in Kansas, where voters that have always voted Republican are kind of leaning more left.
Interesting. And Tayon, you have anything to say
I
about
don't know.
that?
I think this is a
Interesting
really
analysis.
interesting race, but I think it is very competitive for the Democrats. The Democrats really need to fight hard here,
Right.
and they need to. I think expanding their leads would probably be better. But with this governor's race, I think this is incredibly competitive.
Yes.
37 to 36, and a state that went 20 points for Donald
Deep
Trump.
red state. Shocking.
It is very shocking.
Deep red state to a jump ball.
My question would be, what is going on here that why is there such a close race when, like you noted, we have the president's the president won by 20 points.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and why do you think so? I mean, for me, I would personally say it's kind of like a resurgence of this Tea Party moment when in 2014 the Republicans backed perhaps more divisive candidates that are less palatable to a general elections. Democrats were able to get Senator Laura Kelly, who is known to be moderate. So do you think it's kind of who is picked in the party primaries as one of the main catalysts as well?
I do. I think that's part of it. But the other thing is President Trump has a pretty good rating in that job approval rating.
Right. What's that rating again?
It is 55 to 45,
55,
I believe.
45. Comfortable.
So, yeah, it is pretty comfortable, and who knows what's going to happen. It's really exciting, though.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. That's all the time we have for today. Please join us next week as we analyze another poll leading up to the midterm elections. Thank you so much to my guests from Emerson College Polling, Isabel Holloway and Tayon Kulos. We'll see you next week. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.